Hello, and welcome to the first, the last, and the only episode of this podcast, hosted by myself, Noel Williams. Today, my topic is electric vehicles, or EVs. With gas prices rising and global warming getting scarily worse, people are more motivated than ever to leave their gas-guzzling cars and trucks in the past and are looking for a cheaper, more sustainable, and environmentally friendlier mode of transportation. For some people, this could be resolved by using a bike, rideshare, or the public transportation their city has to offer. But for most, this simply will not do. As a result, people are turning to EVs, a seemingly obvious alternative choice for a vehicle. But are they really that sustainable? Better yet, which is the most sustainable of them all, and what is the overall best choice? Today, I hope to uncover those questions and dig deeper into the possible future of transportation. So, the first part of this investigation is finding out what car manufacturers are up to. For this, I reached out to 3 car dealerships in Christchurch under 3 categories: cheap, medium, and luxury. First, I contacted Kent Freer from CMG Motors. I asked him these following questions. So, for someone who has never experienced an electric vehicle, but they would like to buy one, what would you recommend to them?
Yeah, so pretty much when it comes to buying an EV, there's a range of factors you want to look at. You want to look at, obviously, value for money, how big the battery is, what the range of the vehicle is. They're the main factors when buying an EV, and people are comparing the price, the battery size, and the range.
So, since the rise in popularity of hydrogen-powered vehicles, does MG plan to use hydrogen in the future?
The answer to that at this stage is no. I haven't had any confirmation from them about anything hydrogen at this stage.
Next, I contacted Nick Hutchinson from Team Hutchinson Ford. I asked him these following questions. So Ford recently released the new e-Transit and currently has the plug-in hybrid transit models. Does this show that demand for commercial, sustainable vehicles exists?
Definitely, yes. Even from a fleet perspective, where I am, the question is being raised more and more around what companies can do for the future in terms of creating a more sustainable fleet.
What are your personal thoughts on EVs?
I think they're great. I think it's a really good move in the right direction. It's obviously a big change and big consumer change in the way of thinking and the way how they work. Obviously, we've had years and years and years of internal combustion, and there's just some different characteristics around electric vehicles that people will need to get their heads around, like things like charging it. Normally to effectively recharge an internal combustion engine, you go to a petrol station and put a petrol nozzle in for a couple of minutes, and then you're good to go. Whereas electric's a wee bit different. You just have to plan your journeys a wee bit. Just a different way of thinking, I suppose, in terms of, with charging them at home overnight, things like that. Me personally, I don't believe the internal combustion engine is finished. I don't think it's going to be a quick shift from one to the other. I think there's room for both in our fleets and in our markets.
Yeah. Lastly, I contacted Paul Scott Hewitt from Christchurch BMW. I asked him these following questions. See, a majority of BMW's lineup is still purely fossil fuel powered. Does BMW plan to change this?
Yes, absolutely. BMW don't see electricity as the be-all and end-all. BMW see more benefits long-term with hydrogen, which they've got vehicles that they've produced already that are on the roads, clocking up Ks and sort of going through the testing procedures. But they see electricity as a very, very important step between combustion and the likes of hydrogen.
So BMW is serious about hydrogen then?
Yes, very much so. Yes, it's serious about combustion too and electric. I mean, they've committed to building combustion engines for probably another 18 years or so, because they still see a place for it.
Yeah.
And certainly in countries like ours or South Island specifically, where distances travelled tend to be longer, and until we get to a stage where electricity can offer 1,500 k's range and a half an hour charge time, for people that tow or that kind of thing, or go off-road or anything like that, electricity doesn't work. So they're not going to put all of their eggs in that basket, but they still see a place for combustion alongside electricity and hydrogen, yes.
Two of the questions I asked all of the dealers were, 1, how much interest is there in an EV model vehicle? And 2, does the company plan on changing the entire lineup to EVs? For the first question, they all said that due to the recent fee-bait, which is the government-led initiatives that gives you money back on the purchase of an EV, but a tax on polluting vehicles, and the surge in fuel price, that there has been increased interest in EVs, and most people who come in ask about them. This is great news for the government and our environment, as it shows that their initiative, paired with the fuel shortage, is making people at least take interest in EVs. For the second question, does the company plan on changing the entire lineup to EVs? I'll let you hear what they had to say.
The future of MG is to go fully electric at some point. So although we haven't had an official confirmation, I think in the short future there hopefully will be the smaller vehicles available in either EV or plug-in hybrid.
They're quite aggressively shifting to EVs. They wanted a certain percentage of their fleet available in full electric.
Over the next 2 to 3 years, BMW's aim is to have every model in the lineup available with combustion engine, plug-in hybrid and full electric.
Well, there you have it. It looks like car companies are finally starting to see the benefits of low-emission vehicles. And there should be plenty more to come, including hydrogen. If you found that interesting, I highly suggest you read my article on EVs, as that goes more into depth about the true cost of EVs. And spoiler alert, hydrogen power comes out victorious over all other EVs, proving to be the best, most environmentally friendly, long-term solution for the future of transportation.
Hello, and welcome to the Newsroom. My name is Tim, and today I will be informing you about the Roto Electrical Bill. So, what is the Roto Electrical Bill, you may be wondering? Well, the Rotorua Electoral Bill is a proposed change to the way the Rotorua Council is currently seated by adding 3 Māori seats into the council. This bill aims to provide equal representation of both Māori and general candidates. So, who am I interviewing today? I'm interviewing Mr. Robert Lee, a candidate who is running for the Rotorua Council and holding the progression of the bill by putting it for judicial review. Judicial review is when he takes it to court to question whether the bill is ethical. I will be interviewing Mr. Robert Lee on many things concerning the bill, including Rotorua Electoral Bill and the Rotorua Electoral Bill in general, so we can learn more about his opinions and views on the subject. Why is this bill so important to you?
Because democracy is important.
What sort of things make this bill against democracy?
Equal suffrage is a very important principle that guarantees that everybody's vote is worth the same value. So in the case of this bill, it would give to Maori about 2.6 times the voting power as non-Maori.
I was wondering, so if it's discriminatory if the bill's passed, what makes it unfair when the Māori population is only 17% of the population of New Zealand?
The issue is that if you try and achieve voter parity, which is the terminology the council uses for what you've just described, then you end up by giving one group of people more voting power than another group of people, and at that point you cease to have a democracy. So voter parity comes at the expense of equal suffrage, and if you look at it from a mathematical perspective, the two ideas are mutually exclusive. So you can't have one and also have the other. They're mutually exclusive.
Do you have any better solutions to balance equality in Rotorua?
The Local Government Commission has had a careful examination of all of this territory, and so they have come up with a model whereby Māori gets a three-seat ward. So the reason for that is here in Rotorua, 28% of Māori are enrolled on the Māori roll, so they're entitled to 28% of councillors sitting around the council table. So the non-Māori end up with the remaining 72%. So everything's fair because everybody's vote is worth the same.
I was also wondering, what sort of things makes a bill cost allegedly $74,000 towards Rotorua taxpayers?
When you hire lawyers at $1,000 an hour, that doesn't take too long to pick up that sort of money.
How would you explain the issue with the bill simply for people who are listening to this?
The problem with the bill is it was designed by the incumbent members of council, who in my estimation is 6 out of 10 councillors who are in the majority at present, have really designed the bill to suit themselves. So I would characterise what's happened here as the incumbents are trying to rig the election in their own favour, which in a legal context amounts to an improper purpose. Elected members are elected to act in the best interests of the whole community and not in the best interests of themselves. And this is where I think they've crossed the line here.
How well do you consider the review of the bill to be going at the moment?
Very good. So we got through the initial hurdle of getting it filed, and the council's lawyer has not attempted to have the case thrown out on the grounds that it's a frivolous, vexatious case that has no question of law to answer. So it's a credible case, and it's heading to trial on 4th of August. So the High Court judge from Auckland will arrive, and he'll give us a day of his time, and he'll be able to listen to evidence from the Attorney General, hopefully, and also from local Māori who will also be interested in the contents of the bill. So everyone will have a chance to make their case, and the independent judge will get to make the final ruling.
I was wondering, do you think you have good support for others in the Rotorua community at the moment?
Yes, I have already 23 affidavits in support of my case, which includes the former mayor of Rotorua and a number of prominent Rotorua business people, as well as a selection of other Rotorua people who are interested in the matter.
I was wondering, what do you think about how earlier in this month, the person who has tried getting the bill passed, Mr. Jeff Williams, stated that your judicial review of the bill was misconceived? What do you think of that sort of thing?
Yeah, that is typical legal speak. When you're involved in a court case, there's a little bit of banter that goes back and forward, and that is to be expected. Personally, I think the bill is misconceived, and I think the Attorney General agrees with me, and it's of some comfort to have the Attorney General who has produced his report saying so. So I think this council has a track record of poor decision making processes, and I really hope that the decision from the judge will help to educate the Rotorua elected members as to the proper way to go about making decisions, considering those matters that are relevant, not considering those matters which aren't relevant. So I think Rotorua Council needs a better culture in terms of its decision making.
Do you think this review of the bill is helping your candidacy for the Rotorua Court?
I suppose it comes with some publicity. I was recently contacted by a Christchurch school, as a matter of fact, which doesn't happen all the time. But one does not go to the High Court for the sake of publicity. If we troubled the court over a frivolous matter to try and make just for publicity purposes, judges will see through that, and they will make an award of costs against me personally that would make your eyes water. And it's the judge's way of making sure people don't waste their time.
If you became a council member and run the candidacy for the Rotorua election, I was wondering, what sort of things would you do to Rotorua become a better place?
Well, as I just mentioned, ensuring that the council follows a better process as it goes about making decisions and consulting people that need to be consulted. In my view, this council and the majority of current elected members have an agenda, and they have a habit of ramming through that agenda to suit themselves. And as the oath of office says, when a councillor gets elected or a mayor gets elected, we're elected by the people to serve the best interests of the whole community and not just a small community of interest or a subset of the whole community. So we need the whole community to be represented. And I think there is a bit of frustration in Rotorua at the moment, and it reminds me of the Declaration of Independence in America, where the people in America had taxation without representation, and I think there's a lot of people in Rotorua who feel at the moment unrepresented.
And that was the interview that we had with Mr. Robert Lee. Jeff Williams has stated that, as the case is now before the court, it is not appropriate to provide any detailed comment except to say that we consider Mr. Robert Lee's judicial review to be misconceived and containing inaccurate allegations, and it will be strongly opposed. Thank you for your time.
Hello everyone, and welcome to my live stream. Are Macs really worth it for college? Hosted by Felix Stanton.
Prepare for an exciting live stream with interesting opinions and ideas. Have you ever thought that it was insane that you need a 2500 laptop for Google Docs and Chrome? And how most people would be far better off with a Surface Pro or a ThinkPad? Well, in this live stream, we'll cover all your thoughts and questions, from what experts think to what Google recommends. We have live coverage from Ben Smith, who works at college's IT department, fixing and working with and around MacBooks, for his thoughts on our topic. We'll be asking him many questions to find out what he prefers and what he recommends. Unfortunately, we were not able to get a second interview with Paul Rodley, but we make sure to read our future article below to see an extended version of the podcast. Here we interview Ben Smith from college's IT department to see what he thinks. Do you like using MacBooks?
Day-to-day use, yes, they're fine for work. My personal PC at home is a Windows PC, but for work, Macs are good. Yeah.
What do you think is easier to fix or upgrade?
Coming from a Windows background, Windows PCs are far easier than Mac laptops. They're cheaper to repair as well than Mac laptops.
Do you think the extra money is worth it for the average person for a MacBook?
Again, yeah, that's a difficult question to answer. Some people, they like the brand awareness. You'll see some people, they'll only buy a Mac because they want to be seen with a Mac. Yeah. Our finance and advancement team, they were quite upset when we were told them they were using Windows laptops because they like that brand appeal. So it depends on the person. For day-to-day use, a Windows laptop being cheaper, if it does the job correctly, then it's fine. But again, some people like being seen with a Mac laptop.
And the last question, if you had a son or anyone at a school, what would you get them?
If it was a high school, it would be it depended if the school stated it needed a Mac or a Windows device. You have to keep in mind, Chromebooks, if you need something like Photoshop, they're not going to work. If they needed either Windows or Mac was fine, I'd pick a Windows laptop.
Thank you, Ben, for your interesting thoughts. I would have thought that somebody with a Windows background would lead more towards a career based around working with Windows computers rather than MacBooks. Another part that surprised me was how Ben brought up the Apple problem discussed in my feature article, which a lot of people seem to say is the main reason why people prefer MacBooks over other computers. Unfortunately, we were meant to get a second interview done with Paul Rodley, the head of IT department at college, but we were unable to arrange a time for us to interview him. Thanks for listening.
Hello everyone and welcome to today's live stream. My name is Harry Lee and what a lineup I have in store for you today. If you are into fishing, then I suggest that you hook into this live stream. Has anyone ever wondered why we need a freshwater fishing licence in New Zealand? Well, I have, and today all your questions will be answered. Bringing you live this exclusive interview where we will hear from two genuine expert fishermen who for the first time share their knowledge and opinions about freshwater fishing and the need for licences in New Zealand. Firstly, you will hear from a very interesting perspective from Christ College's Deputy Headmaster, Rob Donaldson. Rob thoroughly enjoys fly fishing in Canterbury's freshwater streams and rivers. Time is his only problem. Secondly, we get local knowledge from a South Canterbury old-timer who gives an interesting insight into how fishing has changed over a 50-year period. Retired Temuka policeman and local identity Graham Walker, Graham was a committed fisherman back in the day. Thanks for tuning in and I hope you enjoy these interviews. I would like to introduce you today Christ College's Deputy Headmaster and fishing enthusiast Rob Donaldson. So sir, what is your opinion on whether or not you think a freshwater fishing licence is necessary in New Zealand, and can you explain why in detail why you think this?
Okay, so I think it is necessary. I'm in favour of a freshwater licence, and there are kind of a whole lot of reasons for it, because although I'm not crazy about spending 160 or whatever it is per annum, it's actually relatively cheap for the price, considering it covers the whole of New Zealand except Taupo, and so you get an incredible access to incredible array of rivers, including the backcountry rivers if you put that in your endorsement. I'm in favour of the idea of a licence because Fish and Game, who run the freshwater resource in New Zealand, have to pay their officers to check that people aren't poaching, or that the people are fishing in the right season, taking the right number of trout and salmon. So they've got to pay their officers and they've got admin to run, and so there are a lot of costs associated with running an organisation like that. And you've got to, the other expense that they have is they've got to stock some of the rivers and lakes with trout and salmon. So not all trout actually breed naturally, so they've actually got to go to the expense of actually stocking them with trout, which is the case for some of our high country lakes up here in Canterbury. So that's an expense as well. So they need licence fees to pay for that.
Cool. And so where do you mainly fish and why do you fish there?
So in terms of freshwater, I like fishing small rivers.
Yes.
Because I just find them sort of easier to fish. I don't really like fishing big rivers because they're difficult to cross, and because it's not quite as easy to see where the fish are.
Yes.
So I'm not too fussy because I'm short of time. I normally, I love fishing the high country up here in Canterbury, and also on the west coast. But I'm quite happy to fish the local rivers like the Styx and the South Branch of the Waimak, whatever I can quickly pop out to just to chuck a fly around. So that's in terms of my freshwater experience. I fish a lot down at the mouth of the Waimak with a fly, but I'm going for kahawai, not trout or salmon down there. So that's not really freshwater.
Oh, nice. And how regularly would you say you fish?
Oh, that's a difficult one. During the term time, probably really not that often, maybe pop out once every 2 or 3 weekends for a short trip. Don't normally go away for any length of time, and then try and get a bit done during the holidays, so it's not as much as I would have liked.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, nice. So what style of fishing do you do? Like spin, off the boat, or just off land? I'm interested in all your techniques and what gear you would say is best suited for the area you fish.
Okay, good questions. I mainly fish with a fly rod, and normally quite a light sort of size 5-6.
Nice.
and I don't have a boat, although some friends of mine do, so I prefer fishing off land. And I'm quite happy to chuck a spinner around, but I prefer using a fly. And then I just adapt to the circumstances. Like here in the South Island, you tend to sight fish for fish either with a dry fly or nymph. Whereas when I spent a year up in the North Island, I spent a lot of time fishing with a wet fly or a big lure. So mainly off the land, mainly with light fly gear, small flies.
Oh, nice. And do you have any maintenance tips to keep your gear in good condition?
Yeah, especially if you fish down in the sea with your gear, you've always got to rinse it off with fresh water and give it a good spray of CRC, or just make sure that your gear is well maintained. For normal fly gear, I probably am not quite as fussy in fresh water. I tend to oil the reels occasionally and stretch the line before the start of the season, but I don't spend a lot of time on maintenance.
Yes, nice. I'm also interested in the role that fishing has in your life.
Oh, I like getting out into the outdoors. I often get out and catch no fish at all, which is quite common. But I just like being out, either in the mountains or anywhere in the countryside. So, you see things when you go fishing, like you see birds and interesting things. So, and also it's also like I often go with a fishing mate, so you share the experience. It's a bit of an outing with a friend,
Nice. And finally, sir, in your opinion, do you think a license should be required for a child or a teen? And can you explain why you think this?
I'm quite happy for kids, say under the age of 13, up to the age of 12, not to have a license, because I think you need to be able to take them fishing at any time and let them have fun without having to worry about a license. Yes. Maybe teenagers should have a license but not pay for it, and then you start paying over the age of 18. Yeah. I got one more thing to add, which might not be one of your questions.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Which is that I think, although I said the New Zealand licence is quite cheap relatively, I think overseas anglers should pay at least double, because if they're coming in from overseas to fish our rivers, it's a special privilege for them, and they put a lot of pressure on the water, on the rivers, especially the backcountry rivers. So that, they are bringing in tourist dollars, but I think they should be paying at least twice as much as
Well, that was great getting Mr. Donaldson's opinion. Now, moving on to the next interview with my granddad. Hi Papa, thank you very much for letting me interview you about my topic. My topic is why we need a freshwater fishing licence in New Zealand. So I'm going to get straight into it and ask you a couple questions.
That's fine, Harry.
Yeah, cool. Starting it off, how many years have you been fishing?
Well, I think it's been about 50 plus years since I started fishing. I started out in the early days when I used to work as a motor mechanic at the Ministry of Works, and an old man there taught me how to fish.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So you've had a lot of experience in fresh water then?
Have I had a lot of difference in freshwater fishing? The freshwater fishing, the quality over the years of the water and the quantity of the water has decreased.
Yes.
And it has got, recent years with death from the cow farming, nutrients coming off the cows flowing in, and the farming flowing into the waterways, which I believe has may have an adverse effect on the fishing, full stop, especially in the Canterbury area where we have a lot of cow farms.
Yes. Would you say there are less fish there now than there used to be?
The fish stock over the years I've found has declined, especially I used to chase salmon a lot. The most of my fishing was salmon, although I've trout fished a lot too over the years. But they have declined rapidly over the years, and I believe it's to do with a lot of the nutrients in the soil and coming into the waterways. When we first started salmon fishing, you could take 6 salmon per day.
Yes.
But you can only take the ones that are good size and ones don't. And we had a policy of returning the smaller fish for try and keep the stocks.
Yes.
And the limit of the salmon, as I said, to try and save the salmon stocks has not worked, and it's slowly decreased to now, which is virtually zero salmon fishing coming into the rivers.
Yes.
And this is one of the reasons why I haven't fished for the last few years.